Good afternoon, and thanks to you all for joining us today for the live webcast, Oracle to Cloud Strategies for Success. The information today that is being presented is really intended for the use of this webinar only. I'm Tawana Dyer, the Oracle Alliance Director at Apps Associates, and I'm fortunate to be joined today by our own John Schmotlak, the SVP of Delivery, Ariba Kamal, one of our VPs of Sales, and from SEACOR Marine, Curtis Miller, the Director of IT, and Terri Collins, their Applications Development Manager. Today's session will focus on SEACOR's strategy for success on Oracle Cloud. Curtis will walk us through their complex business and industry requirements, and Terri will walk us through their post-implementation and optimization. Before I turn it over to John, while most of you are familiar with Apps Associates, I will take a moment to give you a quick overview. We were founded in 2002. We have over 950 employees around the world with offices in the United States, India, and Germany. We are recognized as an Oracle to Cloud leader, and we have deep expertise in all things Oracle. With that, I'd like to turn it over to John.
Thank you, Tawana. Carla, yeah. And so just a little bit about SEACOR Marine. SEACOR Marine is, they provide transportation services to global offshore oil and gas facilities. Their fleet consists of platform supply vessels used to transport essential equipment and additional manpower to reinforce deep water drilling and production operations. They also have fast support vessels that serve as a cost-effective alternative to helicopter transportation, lift boats for construction, maintenance, and offshore wind farms, and anchor handling towing supply vessels built to deploy and recover mooring systems for deep water drilling rigs, undertake traditional supply duties in support of drilling operations, and support subsea construction activities. Next slide, Carla. SEACOR operates across 5 countries with over 1,600 employees. They are a publicly held company listed on the New York Stock Exchange. SEACOR is committed to environmentally sustainable practices. They are on the forefront of their industry's technological advancements and lead the industry for adherence to environmental, social, and government standards. Key corporate goals include the reduction of fuel consumption, lowering emissions, and helping to decrease environmental impacts. Their fleet is young, with an average age of 9 years, and has modern conveniences, including satellite TV, Wi-Fi, reclining business class seats. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Curtis Miller to give you some background on their business requirements and complexities as it relates to their Oracle ERP Cloud implementation.
Thank you, John. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So, as John said, my name is Curtis Miller. I'm the Director of IT for SEACOR Marine. I will apologize up front. They did give me a little bit of a script to go through, but keeping me on script is about as good as keeping a squirrel running a straight line. So I'll do my best to go through this and look forward to hearing your questions at the end of the presentation. We started our journey to Oracle Fusion when we spun off from our parent company in 2017. Prior to my arrival, a decision was made to go with Oracle Fusion. I did not join the project until about 6 weeks prior to go live. My role at that point was to determine if we were going to go live in 6 weeks. At that point, we were 6 months behind budget. We were 6 months behind schedule. We were significantly over budget. So the burning question was, can we go live? Which was immediately pivoted by, we will be going live in 6 weeks. So at that point, the focus really became, what are the priorities for go live? And those really were, can we generate invoices and can we pay our people? We looked at that as core to be able to complete our go live. If we said yes to that, then we decided that we were actually going to complete our go live on schedule, which we did. From an organizational standpoint, as John mentioned, we operate on 5 different continents. We have vessels in the Gulf of Mexico, North Sea, Middle East, Africa, and South Pacific. So we've got a pretty broad fleet covering the globe. This, of course, presents its own challenges in relation to localization. But you layer on top of that we also have employees that are mariners. Mariners have very unique legal requirements, very strict requirements around how you pay them, how you track their time, which led to some very complex reporting requirements for HR. Some of our mariners are on direct payroll. Some of our mariners are paid through third parties. So it made for, and still makes for a very complex environment to be able to manage. On top of that, since we have gone live, we have started a couple of joint ventures. We have ended a couple of joint ventures. Our vessels are set up as unique orgs inside of the Fusion. So anytime we purchase a vessel, bring one online, or sell a vessel, it's essentially it's treated almost as a merger and acquisition. So the environment's very complex, it's very dynamic, and there's quite a bit going on at any given time. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as I mentioned, when I came on board, it was 6 weeks prior to go live. All the decision makers, executives that have been part of the scoping and the selection of Fusion were no longer with the organization. The scope of work from the implementation partner was fairly broad and didn't have a great deal of detail. So from the very beginning, for Terry and I, it was a lot of, let's just call it detective work and discovery, trying to find out exactly what was scope for go live, what did success mean to the business. Since we were spinning off from a former parent company and becoming our own organization, all the corporate resources remained with our parent. And essentially you have personnel at the branch level that were changing roles. They were essentially doing the same job, but now they were, instead of operating at a branch level or division level, they were operating at a corporate level. This presented quite a bit of challenge for them as far as when we want to talk about how we were going to conduct business, what do they need to do their jobs. There really wasn't a lot of there, and there really wasn't a deep knowledge base for us to rely on. Again, this kind of made for go live to be challenged and post go live support to be a challenge. But we got through it. At that point, we were partnered with Associates, and they did quite a bit of work with us to get us through those challenging times and get us to the point where we are now. Next slide, please. Sorry, going through my notes. As we finished go live, it really became a journey of the firsts. It was the first payroll. It was the first month in. It was the first quarter close. It was the first year in. It was the first open enrollment. Where we started, and with the lack of organizational knowledge that we had, each one of these was a very significant milestone for us to achieve. And to be honest, some of these were quite painful to accomplish. What we learned very, very quickly is the importance of change management and a formal PMO process. We were struggling for that first year to try and figure out the things that were coming into the IT department. Were they support requests or were they enhancements? It really was kind of difficult sometimes to differentiate between the two, since we didn't have a lot of documentation on what was scoped for the project, what we wanted to look like when we were done. And we're trying to figure this out as we went. So what we did is we stood up the formal PMO, and we ensured that the business was sitting at the table with us. My philosophy when it comes to Oracle Fusion is, or any ERP platform, is it is a business platform. The business owns it, and it's IT's responsibility for care and feeding. So what we needed to do was to put the business in the driver's seat, so that as things were coming into IT, it was the business that was looking at the request. It was the business that was evaluating whether or not the request was justified or that they wanted to move forward. And then finally, it was up to business to say, this is first, this is second. I'm a firm believer that IT should not be in the driver's seat to determine what are those priorities to the business. It really should be a partnership with IT acting as consultants to the business to ensure that whatever need they needed, IT was there to propose the best solution. Next slide, please. So as any major project, everybody says, what are the lessons learned? What did you get out of this? First tile here is executive sponsorship. It seems like anytime you talk about project management, you talk about organizational change. There's a reason why this is usually, one of the first or second bullets that people talk about. And that if you do not have executive sponsorship for what you're doing and what's being proposed, there are going to be significant challenges. You need the executives on some occasions to herd the cats, to make sure that the right people are sitting at the table, and to ensure that we're having successful conversations. We were exceedingly fortunate in that we had very strong backing from our executive leadership. They're very invested in the project. They were invested in IT being successful with the go live, and they're invested in making sure that IT had what it needed to meet the needs of the business. Some of the other lessons learned that are, I would say there's silver lining, is that as part of the original decision to go with Fusion, go with Oracle Cloud, is that we decided that we were going to be 100% cloud-based organization. So we have no data center. We have no server closets. I can count physical servers that are in branches on fingers. And the vast majority of those that are in place are in the process of being decommissioned. So if you look at a purely cloud environment like that, a couple things happened. When COVID hit and people had to go remote, it almost made it a non-event since everything was internet facing. Everybody picked up their laptops, their desktops, they took them home, plugged them in, and they were conducting business just like they were before. I think that first couple of weeks after COVID, and we decided we were going to work from home, we had a slight blip in help desk tickets, but other than that, it was business as usual. The other thing that's been a silver lining is compliance and SOX. We are going for our SOX certification, SOX opinion this year. When you no longer have that infrastructure component that you're responsible for, when you no longer have to worry about access to the database, access to the hardware, it takes a huge chunk of your SOX compliant, and it makes it non-key. There still are conversations that we're having, both with internal and external auditors, that sometimes we have to walk them through, why something doesn't apply. But when you're a software as a service, there are definite benefit and savings in the fact that you no longer have to answer those questions or build policies and procedures around that. Of course, the other benefit that goes with that is get yourself out of the capital hardware refresh cycle. Um, you don't have to go before the board or executive committees and say, software or the infrastructure is end of life. I need funding for a complete refresh and everything that goes with that. It's no longer your responsibility, and it makes planning a great deal easier. But just because you are on Oracle and it says software as a service, change management is just as important as it was before, because now you're on Oracle's refresh or patch cycle. You're on their quarterly cycle. You're going to have a little bit of some fun conversations with the business in regards to, as opposed to doing patching at will when it was convenient to the business, you're on Oracle's clock. We got quite a bit of pushback the first couple of cycles while we developed our processes around how do we do standardized regression testing, how do we patch. Excuse me, but once we got that taken care of and we built a process around that, and the business got used to it, it went much better. The other thing is that everybody talks about when it's an ERP, it's all about training. Do you have the appropriate training? Are you creating the leave behind material? Fully admit, as an organization, we didn't do what we should have in this regards. Excuse me. And we're still playing a little bit of catch up on that. We're about 2 years post go live, and we're just now getting to the point where we've got our training and leave behind documentation to the point where it should be. But now that we have that, it is really starting to pay dividends to the business and to IT as well. In regards to creating standardized processes in the post-production support model, I'm going to turn it over to my development manager, Terri Collins, and she will cover those topics with you.
Thank you, Curtis. So as Curtis mentioned, we're at a phase where we have stabilized overall as an organization. And as we're going through training and users are becoming more acclimated with the system and the functionality, we're now actually starting to receive more changes, requests for enhancements and projects. So as a result, to manage that pipeline of activities, Curtis mentioned, we did develop a formal project management office, which is a PMO. The PMO has been very helpful with managing the pipeline, managing priorities, giving us visibility to things that the business deems as critical or as a top priority for 2021 and well into 2022. It's also helped us, and Curtis kind of touched on this as well, move more into a proactive mode versus reactive. So we're able to plan and make sure that we have resources aligned and know what to expect and how we can align with our overall corporate initiatives and what's important to everyone from a business perspective cross-functionally. As we're gathering and prioritizing, we've also developed a strategic roadmap. That roadmap has gone well into 2022. So the PMO has been helpful with that, and apps has been helpful with helping us to actually do some of that heavy lifting and managing that pipeline of activities. As far as reconfigurations and optimizations, the system, we've been able to do continuous process improvement. This is ever evolving. So as those changes and enhancements are coming across, we've looked at standardizing not only locally, but also globally where we can, across purchasing, finance, HR, across all areas. So we've got many business process improvements initiatives that are running in parallel to many of those system improvements as well. Partnership with apps. So apps has helped us with many things. There's the ongoing user training. There's the day-to-day post-production support. We refer to it as break fix type items, general inquiries. And then also, as Curtis mentioned about the change management, helping give, they've helped with best practices and solutions and being a consulting arm for our end users. So it's helped with the user adoption. The other is apps has helped with our SOX compliance. We talked about that. One of many examples is approval workflows. We've built workflows in AR, AP, purchasing, and now just recently we're starting to kick off an HCM workflow. And all of these are just a sample set of examples to ensure that we are SOX compliant. We'll talk more about the expansion into new functionality here shortly on the release management, but that is one of the key benefits of cloud. It's also one of the key benefits of partnering with apps. They have a very deep bench across all functions. There's, as I mentioned, there's the consultative arm, but doing the heavy lifting for our large scale projects, as well as our day-to-day break fix items. So a lot of their consultants have a vast array of experience, hands-on, as well as providing best practice and industry solutions that we need to take our digital solution forward. As far as Oracle Cloud updates and release management, so we have a quarterly release. We are actually prepping for 21C, which will be available in our instances in August. And so this is about our 10th, I would say about our 10th overall as an organization in the cloud. So we're now familiar with this process. We actually manage our cloning cycles, our P2T or production to test and dev instances, and we schedule those also around the quarterly releases. So that's a pretty standard process, and the business is now familiar. We've identified key end users across all functions to help with the testing. And we've also developed an impact analysis that's more end user friendly. So that's where the end users have the ability to understand what type of enhancements to expect for their given track and see if they'd like to leverage them in any of our environments. Next slide, please. SaaS and back office, Curtis mentioned COVID-19. So that is definitely one of the great value adds. We're able to, since we're 100% cloud across our applications, a lot of the activities that I just mentioned, all of that was conducted during COVID. We went remote in March of 2020. And as an organization, from a Fusion standpoint, PBCS and our applications, we were to continue. We had very minimal interruption as a result of that. So that's one of the key value adds and benefits. Really excited about that. From a SOX and SOC 2 compliance, Oracle is a top tier ERP system. So one of the great benefits of Oracle is that it is definitely SOX compliant and SOC 2 compliant. So many of the enhancements, or even without the enhancements, just standard functionality out of the box. The great thing about that is that you're automatically SOX compliant because it is a highly compliant tool. Benefits of the quarterly and monthly updates. Oracle, during those quarterly releases, they are introducing key functionality across all tracks. Tracks meaning the finance, HR, supply chain, purchasing, just to name a few. The great thing about the quarterly releases is you can control what's upgraded into your system. So you can have it in production, development, or test. And you get to actually practice or test some of that functionality before you actually commit to it. So that's one of the great key things about Fusion. Ease of expansion. So just to name a few in terms of ease of expansion and flexibility of integrations, we have a few just to name, such as the exchange rates. We integrate with Owanda for our exchange rates, and then we have a payroll and AP interface with various banks. And it's a lot more easier. It's a lot more streamlined. Oracle Cloud. We also have another one with account reconciliation tool that we've just kicked off in July. So the bolted add-ons, Oracle is highly compatible with an array of different systems. So that's also helpful, and it's an advantage in terms of flexibility and being able to implement quickly your integrations with less complexity. Although we do have changes and enhancements, a lot of them are more so a nice to have. Out of the box, Oracle offers a lot, not only from a day-to-day transactional standpoint, but also in their reporting capabilities. So out of the box, there's a lot of seeded and standard functionality for your reports, as well as your transactions across all modules. One other example when we talk about the ease and the flexibility is onboarding of new entities. The hierarchy has changed in Oracle Cloud in comparison to EBS R12. So your legal entities, you have more functionality to work with in terms of hierarchies, such as your legal entities, your business units, your data access sets, areas of responsibility. Security is also a lot more enhanced, if you will, which is also going back to the SOX and the SOC 2 compliance. Security is a lot more enhanced in this in the cloud. And then standardized processes, all of that is going on in parallel to our existing implementations and based on existing configurations. As I mentioned, we're trying to standardize not only locally, but also globally as well as a company. Next slide, please.
Great, thank you, Terri. And Terri and Curtis, thank you both so much for sharing your story with us. It certainly helps to get a firsthand account from peers that have gone through this process, right? And they've gone through a transformation like this. And we hope that this has been a valuable session for everyone who took the time to attend. Terri and Curtis both talked about cloud updates and managing that process, adopting the new functionality that gets pushed out with each cloud update. Part of what Apps Associates does for SEACOR as part of managed services includes our release management offering, which is what we're showing right here. So we do everything from planning and scheduling the updates. We do an impact analysis. We review the new functionality that's getting pushed out and assess what's applicable to SEACOR. And then we use automated testing tools, which just makes the whole process a lot quicker and efficient. Next slide. So for those of you that are evaluating a move to Oracle Cloud, Apps Associates does offer a detailed workshop where we assess your on-premise customizations, your configurations, your integrations, and then we also do a functional assessment to understand what functionality benefits that you could benefit from in Oracle Cloud. So we document that, we deliver a future state process recommendation, as well as a phasing roadmap for Oracle Cloud. So we will be sending this deck out to everyone who took the time to attend today. You can learn more about our offering and register for that workshop using the link on this page. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending this webinar. We hope the session was helpful and informative for you, and we look forward to connecting with each and every one of you over the next few weeks.
Thank you, Ariba. We did have a few questions come in. The first one is, how many years of historical data did you take to the cloud, and what did you do with the rest of the legacy data?
So we took a little bit of a different approach. We decided not to bring in legacy data. We only brought in, let's call it active transactions. We were still using our parent company, our former parent company, R12 instance as our legacy archival system. So we go back to that one when we need anything, and we made the choice only to bring active over.
Okay, great, thank you. And another one came in for you, Curtis. You spoke about the importance of executive sponsorship. Any tips on how to gain that?
Oh God. that's a discussion all in and of by itself. I wish there was a magic pill or a secret sauce I could tell you what it is. I just got very fortunate to have executive leadership team here that are very supportive IT. In fact, they're our early adopters for just about anything that we do. We have a couple of executives that, if IT testing something, they want to be part of the IT testing. I got lucky. I wish I could tell you there's a secret to it, but there's not.
Okay, thank you. We have another one that just came in for you. You mentioned you were 6 months behind from go live when you took over. Was there any particular reason why the project was so delayed?
Absolutely. The project was poorly scoped. We didn't have the right resources in place where they needed to be. As I mentioned, since we weren't bringing over corporate resources, we were using branch level, division level people to function as corporate. And I really don't think people had wrapped their head around that. And it took quite a bit of education and let's call it, I'd say arm twisting, but some horse trading and some really honest conversations. Let them know this is your role now. So we had to educate the business about it, but I'd say poor planning and poor scoping that really led to us being behind schedule and over budget.
Okay, and are you seeing any ROI to date that you can share with us?
We haven't sat down and done a hard calculation of what the ROI has been. We've just been so heads down focused on moving forward. I can tell you anecdotally that at this phase, we're coming up on 3 years. We'd probably already be starting conversations about refresh. What's next in the pipeline? Where is the infrastructure technology going? I don't have to have those conversations. They're non-existent. So if you just want to talk about from an IT standpoint, my infrastructure team is much smaller than it probably normally would be, and the people I have are much more focused on being direct value to the business versus, what are we going to run on Oracle on for the next phase? What are we going to do with the storage? What are we going to do with the virtual servers? It's just, we're taking it off the table and all those associated costs.
Okay, thank you. I did not see any more questions come in. We appreciate your time today. Thank you to our speakers, Curtis, Terry, and John. One last one coming in at the moment. I apologize. Let's just grab that. And did the parent company also move to Oracle Cloud?
To my knowledge, they're still on R12. I haven't really spoken to them in quite a bit. I know that they're considering it, but I have not heard what decision that they have made.
Okay. Well, thank you so
Carla,
much.
just one thing too, it's John here. I just wanted to just emphasize the points with Terry and Curtis. The move to the cloud, I think the themes that you've heard here, standardized processes, kind of adopting the features that are available in the cloud and continuing to evolve. Unfortunately, there's lots of customers like SEACOR that we run into where another partner has done the implementation and maybe their experience wasn't so fantastic that's out there, and they're really looking to right size the implementation and to really do things that are geared towards leveraging the power of the tool set that's in there, right? And so a big part of the managed service offering and being able to have a deep bench of resources to be able to support that, is that we can, sometimes take those implementations which are, a little off the rails and kind of get them back on track again, and then really just help the customer to, stabilize and move forward. And I think SEACOR is a great example of a company that we've been able to work very closely with to get to that stabilization layer and to really just move forward. And I think the only other thing that I would say is that we are, the managed service offering is very adaptable to what the client's needs are. We don't assume that every client needs a cookie cutter approach to, support and migrations. And so we've worked very closely with Terri and Curtis since the beginning of our relationship to just help them to, leverage our team the best way possible for SEACOR Marine. And so we talk on a regular basis about how can we do things better, how can we move together better, and that's been a tremendous part of the partnership that we've had with SEACOR Marine. So it's definitely a part of the overall journey, and as you can see here, there's lots to do going forward in terms of enhancing the way that they're using the Oracle Cloud product.
The apps was not the implementer; they were the cavalry, however.
Still are, Curtis.
Yes, sir.
Well, wonderful. Again, thank you everyone for taking time out of your day. Thank you, Curtis and Terri and John, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.